The environment. We're always in it, yet not always aware of it. Lately, there has been a shift towards focusing on conserving and protecting the environment. However, most stuff you hear these days about protecting the environment comes from a secular worldview. However, we as Christians should be concerned about the environment because we have been put in charge of it. However, you don't hear a lot from a Christian perspective on how to be a steward of the environment. So I will give what I think environmental stewardship from a Christian perspective should look like. First of all, part of the reason environmental stewardship has come into focus recently is due to several issues which include global warming and the oil spill in the Gulf. Now, why is it important that we take care of the environment? Well, first of all, according to Jeffrey Greenberg from the Department of Geology at Wheaton College, practical experience shows that consideration of human needs demands care for the environment. We need to take care of creation. We as mankind need the environment to survive. Without it, we wouldn't be able to survive here on Earth. However, what authority do we have to be stewards and rule over the environment? Well, first of all, God has given us a responsibility. He has given us dominion over nature. He has put us in charge. We are to rule. In Genesis 1:26, God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all of the creatures that move along the ground." Right there, God tells us that we are in charge of everything on this earth. He's put us over it to take care of it. He's made us stewards of His creation. However, what exactly does it mean to be a steward? Well, first of all, Webster's defines a steward as an administrator as of another's finances and or property. So basically, a steward is someone who is in charge of and takes care of something that someone else owns. So we are in charge of the earth. We have control over it. We rule over it. But we do not own it. It's not ours. It's ultimately still God's. So as stewards, how should we use our authority? First of all, we should be like the wise steward in Luke 19. We should put the environment and such to good use and conserve it and take care of it. Not just ignore it and let it waste away or do nothing with it. We want to use it wisely. We want to be able to manage it and keep it healthy and not waste it. But ultimately, even though we may be in charge, God is still in control. He is the one who feeds the birds of the air. We aren't the ones who take care of that. He knows whatever goes on in the earth. He knows about the oil spill. However, there are dangers that can come if we aren't careful about how we go about being stewards of the environment. We can end up so focused on the creation that we forget about God, or our focus isn't fully on God, it's more on the creation, and thus nature and the environment can become an idol. And that's largely what has happened in many of the secular areas. They become so focused on conserve the environment, protect it, we need to save the polar bears and the penguins and keep global warming from destroying the earth. They're entirely focused on the creation. And usually, most of the time, what your ultimate focus is on is your God. So we should not be ultimately focused on the creation. Now, let's take a quick look at how this way of being stewards of the environment from a Christian perspective would apply to two fairly recent issues. the Gulf oil spill, and global warming. First of all, the oil spill. Now, just about everyone will admit that it's a disaster. There's been a lot of damage done from it. It's really hurting the environment. However, we need to look at this carefully, because ultimately it's not as bad as it first seemed. According to an article in Time magazine, the Gulf oil spill has only killed 1% of all the birds that were number of birds that were killed in the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska, and only 350 acres of the wetlands along the Gulf are contaminated with oil, which you compare that to Louisiana loses 15,000 acres of wetland every year. Now, what were we doing when we were drilling? Some say we should not be drilling for oil, but ultimately, what is drilling? Drilling is taking dominion over the earth. We're ruling it. We're putting it to use. Now, what can we learn? Well, first, let's clean up from the spill. Let's try repair the damage that we're done. And ultimately, accidents will happen. You can't prevent everything that could go wrong from going wrong. So let's clean up and learn what we can and move on and put it to good use. Now, global warming. You hear quite a bit about it these days. Everybody talks about how we need to reduce our emissions. We're destroying the ozone layer. The atmosphere is getting depleted. We're getting greenhouse effect. Yet, we hear all this hype and all this scramble to do something about it, but is it even real? First off, the Earth has natural cycles of warming and cooling. In the past, there have been examples. One I can think of is there were woolly mammoth fossils found, I believe it was in Russia, and they had tropical plants in their stomachs. They were fossilized. Tropical plants don't grow that far north today. In the fact the woolly mammoths lived in warmer environments would indicate that the Earth's temperature hasn't always been the same as it has. It goes in cycles. Now, first of all, the main claim is that the Earth is warming and that we are causing it. However, the reality is, yes, records of temperatures recently do show a rise, but it's not necessarily from pollution or anything we're doing. Well, it is from something we're doing. It's from skewing the data. Now, in America, there is around 1,200 some sensor stations that measure the temperatures and record them. Now, there's something odd that's been found out about these. The majority of them are placed in strange locations that skew the data. For example, one in Arizona is located right in the middle of a black asphalt parking lot. You think that maybe that one would get higher temperatures than if it was, say, located out in the natural environment? What does black do? It absorbs the heat, so it would make sense that it's going to be hotter there since the parking lot is built and the sensor is placed. Another one, located in Kentucky, is right over an asphalt patio and a grill on the side of a brick house right next to the chimney. I bet that one also will show a lot of warming. They aren't in positions that will give you unbiased data. Now, how come you don't hear about it? Well, first of all, the data is skewed, but it's skewed towards the activists' agenda. All these activist scientists, if there's no crisis, they get no funding. If there's no global warming, they don't get all the huge grants to study it and try to figure out what we can do. So, they just ignore the fact that the data is skewed. And there are many examples of this. If you take the time to look, Global warming is fraught with changing the data, lying, editing it to make it fit the view and show something that really isn't true. Because the reality is that the Earth is actually slightly cooling. Now, if global warming was real right now, it likely would be because of a natural cycle in the Earth. So ultimately, what should we do? Well, let's follow God's commands and do our part. Let's take dominion over the earth, rule over it, multiply, take control, and manage it wisely. Let's take care of His creation and do our job as stewards. But ultimately, let's remember, whatever we do, we are just His stewards. God is still the ultimate authority. He has ultimate control, no matter what we do. And finally, let's remember to remain focused on Him.